Hi everybody, my name is Chris Stevens and I teach in the Mendoza College of Business here at Notre Dame, and I'm also the founding co-director for the Inspired Leadership Initiative. The Inspired Leadership Initiative is a program that we started 3 years ago, and it affords the opportunity for people who have finished their traditional careers to come to Notre Dame or even come back to Notre Dame with their former students, and for a full year discern, discover, and then decide how they want to spend the rest of their life, how they want to be a greater force for good. So we're pleased to be able to bring you this inspiring conversation. Certainly want to thank the staff of the Inspired Leadership Initiative, as well as the staff of ili.nd.edu and the Notre Dame Alumni Association, particularly Mary Scott and the club director, or the Alumni Association director, Dolly Duffy. So with that, I want to get into talking to our guests. So we're really thrilled to have this gentleman with us. Jerome Bettis, welcome to Inspiring Conversations.
Appreciate it.
So on February the 16th, you celebrated your 50th birthday, and you're back here at Notre Dame, and you're taking 4 classes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that was a funny moment because one of my professors, he pulled me to the side, and we actually stepped out of the room, and he said, and I'm thinking, well, I'm in trouble already? And so he says, well, usually I make an announcement of a student's birthday, regardless if they want me to or not. He said, but for you, I'm going to make an exception. and he says, do you want me to acknowledge your birthday? I said, well, let's not do that. I'm turning 50, and it's probably easier that we just let it go. And so he understood, and he was like, I get it, no problem. So that was, you know, one of those first experiences in dealing with this interesting dynamic that here I am, a 50-year-old returning student, and I'm in a class with a bunch of 20-somethings, and it was just an incredible moment in that particular second.
Well, that's exactly what our Inspired Leadership Initiative fellows do. They have a chance to be able to audit classes across the entire university, undergraduate, graduate classes, and they are that senior person in the room too. So, and if you think you're old, I'm so old, when I have a birthday, the candles cost more than the cake. When I was a boy, the Dead Sea was only sick. Anyway, but it's good to have you. So I'm kind of curious. Your mother Gladys must be very, very proud of you because you've been able to, you're going to get your degree in only 6 terms. Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden.
That's right.
But no, your mom must be very proud. This was a promise that you made her that you were going to complete this.
It was a promise because I left school early, and in that meeting, myself, my dad, and Coach Holtz, we talked about the possibility of leaving school early, and then the question was raised, well, if you leave school early, you know, are you going to come back to finish your degree? And I told my mom and dad at that moment, then and there, that yes, absolutely, I will. I promise I will come back and finish my degree. And so that was something that I always was looming in my mind. I wanted to do, and life happens, and so you go in so many different directions, and kids and their needs and you know, business. So everything started to really kind of push me in a direction that wasn't, you know, going back to school, and it got to the point where I got a nudge with COVID. COVID helped the opportunity because I knew I needed to come back to campus in my senior year. COVID provided the opportunity for me to get back into class at home without you know, that nervousness that you would have after, you know, 30 years and then coming back into a classroom. Yeah,
I'm kind of curious. Do you think it is as challenging academically now as when you were here as an undergraduate?
It's much different now.
Technology, right?
Yeah. I'm the only one in class right now knows, and everybody else is and they're plowing away, and I'm like, what are they doing? And so, perfect example with technology. I go to one of my classes, and I'm in the class, and nobody's in the room, and I'm thinking to myself, man, everybody's late, right? I'm early, everybody's late. And I look, and something just says, just pull up I was not looking at my email every morning, and so they canceled the class, and I didn't know. I'm the only one in the classroom. I'm sitting in there, and the professor had sent out emails to everybody, and everybody got it except me because I didn't think that I needed to check my email, regularly, and now, I'm checking it 2 and 3 times during my classes, and so it's not all day. It's like in 6 hours, I'm checking it 2 or 3 times. So it's much different in terms of what I expected the technology gap would be to what it actually was. A huge technology gap.
Wow. Well, for those of you who don't know Jerome's scrapbook, he's originally from Detroit. Never played football until he got to high school, Mckenzie High School. Became All-State Player of the Year at halfback and linebacker, and then had a chance to choose where he wanted to go to school, and he came to Notre Dame. Was here at Notre Dame and rushed for 1,900 yards and another 400 receiving, 2,300 total yards, All-American, and then he left after his junior year to go pro, and was drafted by the Los Angeles Rams with the 10th pick of the draft, and was in Los Angeles for a couple of years, and then they moved to St. Louis, and you had a wonderful rookie career. He set the rookie rushing record, was first team All-Pro as a rookie and Rookie of the Year. And then coaches change, and sometimes philosophies of the coaches change, and that happened in your instance. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it did. So, obviously had the first 2 really successful years, but the team made a decision to move to St. Louis, and in moving to St. Louis, they fired their old coach, brought in a new coach, and this particular coach was a coach that just leaving college and was coming to the NFL for the first time. And he ran, the team like a college team. The only problem was, he had men that were, 35 years old. And so you can't ask a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old to do something and ask the 35-year-old guy to do the same thing. It just doesn't work. And he didn't understand that the dynamics in the NFL is much different than college. And so these men are self-motivated, they're very driven, but they're adults with children and they have families. And so, the things that he was asking everyone to do was a little bit, was strange, to say the least. But nonetheless, we went through and didn't have a particularly great year. And as a result of it, he pushed a lot of the blame in my direction, and I had big enough shoulders to handle that, but it was a lot of the things that came after it was hurtful to me in the sense that there was a lot of that I was not a good teammate, and I was a cancer in the locker room. All the things were the farthest from the truth, but it was an attack of my character. And at that point, I made a decision that I was not going to stay with that organization. So at that point, I re-enrolled back at the university and came back, and I said to that team that if you don't trade me, I'm going back to school, and if you don't trade me, I'm going to stay in school. I have no intention to come back and play for you, and if that means I have to retire, then I'm willing to retire, because it was a principal issue at that point, and it wasn't about football. It was about me, my name, being tarnished, and I just wouldn't stand for it. So I decided to come back to school. I came back and got another semester in, and fortunately for me, they gave me permission to seek a trade, and that was
I think it was Thomas Jefferson said, in matters of fashion, roll with the tide. In matters of principle, stand like a rock.
That's right.
And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
And so you had a chance to choose who you could get traded to, which was a nice opportunity, and you chose the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pretty good choice, huh?
Great choice. Great choice. There was a lot of good things about the Steelers, and there was one, in looking at their history, they love big running backs. I was a big running back, so I just thought that it made a lot of sense. But even more important than that, they had just lost a Super Bowl. So I knew that this was a championship caliber football team, and I figured I'm the missing piece, right? 10 years later, with no championship, that was not the case. But it was a great decision, and I thought I made the best decision possible.
Oh, you sure did. My goodness. And then to be able to come back or come to Pittsburgh and to become the comeback player of the year, because he was awarded that award as well, and had 8 over 1,000 yards rushing seasons. Pretty amazing. And he would have had the all-time rushing record in the season, except your team had clinched a game and they sat you in the last game when you only needed 26 yards.
But they asked me if I wanted to play, and I told them that I would rather be healthy for the playoffs. And the individual record was not that important to me because they wanted me to get it, and they asked me, "Hey, if you want it, we're going to play you." And I just felt that that was a selfish idea, and it didn't matter to me. What mattered was to try to win a championship.
So 6 All-Pro seasons, 2 years that he was first team All-Pro, and then after year 12, you were thinking about maybe hanging it up, and someone made a promise to you.
So we are losing a game. We're playing the New England Patriots. Hopefully nobody here is from New England because you definitely don't get to ask questions. But no, just joking. But so we're losing to the Patriots, and the game is winding down. And at that point, I realized that this is the last game of my career. So, I got tears coming down my eyes because, the reality of it is that, this is it for me. And no one ever wants their career to come to an end, this way. You always envision it being grand. But here we are in a losing effort at home, on the sidelines. I'm crying. And then Ben comes over and he says, Jerome, just give me one more chance. He says, I can do it. We can do it. He says, if you come back, I promise I'll get you to the Super Bowl. And I was just like, man, I'm like, this rookie, he doesn't know. He doesn't know what it takes. It's been 12 years. It's just a little bit more than that. And so I thought to myself, nah. The next day I go into the team meeting room, much like this, all my teammates in the room, and I have a heartfelt speech and just let them know how much I appreciated them as teammates. And I told them that, I would be retiring, and that was it. Well, my coach says, hey, just give us some time to think. Don't make a rash decision, right now. I said, okay, but I think this is it. Well, just so happens at that particular time, my wife was right about to have our first child. And so I say I'm retiring. My daughter comes that next, 2 days later, and she's born premature, comes, boom. Now I'm a father. It's like, okay, I'm definitely done. This is the next chapter of my life. And so I said, okay, that's it. It's over. Well, I get a phone call that week. And my daughter was born prematurely, so she was in ICU for a week. So I'm at the hospital, back and forth. I get a phone call. They say that the running back for the Patriots breaks his ribs in the Super Bowl, and that they want me to come to the Pro Bowl. So I say initially, no, I'm done. I know it. My daughter, she's in ICU. No way, right? But then I said, okay, you know what? Let me talk to the boss. Let me ask the wife. Let me talk to the boss. So I talked to my wife, and she says, well, listen, if you're really retiring, then you need to go and end your career on a positive note. You never want to just end it the way it ended. I mean, I know it's going to eat at you. And I said, you're right, okay? I said, but, our daughter, she said, I got her. She's going to be fine. Don't you worry about it. Let's finish this thing off. All right. And so I go to Hawaii, and the Pro Bowl is there. And just so happens, because we lost in the AFC Championship game, the Steelers were the team, the coaching staff were the coaches for the Pro Bowl. So now all of a sudden we've got all the coaches there, and that year we were 15-1, and so we had the best team in the NFL, and so we had 8 guys that went to the Pro Bowl. So now it was a love fest, a Steeler love fest at the Pro Bowl. And then those 8 guys brought couple teammates. So we may have 15, 20 teammates. The coaches and the owners, Mr. Rooney, they came. So it was just like, a team meeting almost. So I'll never forget, we have a Steeler luau. They put together this luau because all these Steelers, the players, their wives, and the coaches, their wives. So they did this dinner, a luau for just all the Steeler players. So we came, go to the dinner, and I'll never forget, 2 guys, they kind of corner me. And they're like, listen, man, you need to come back for one more year. And I'm like, man, nah, it's over. It's over. And they're like, listen, we were 15-1. We're going to have another great team. You know that? And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And I'm like, nah, but that's And so, but the one thing they said that really struck a chord, I'm from Detroit, and the one guy who was talking to me, he was from Detroit too. His name was Larry Foote. And Larry says, man, the Super Bowl's going to be in Detroit. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I hadn't, as a football player, you don't think about where the Super Bowl is going to be next year. You worried about that year, right? So I had no idea the Super Bowl next year was going to be in my hometown. So I said, you know what? You're right. Because if the Super Bowl's in Detroit and I'm not there, I'll be a streaker on the field. I'm going to get on the field some kind of way. So I said to myself, let me talk to the boss. So I go home and I talk to my wife. Her name is Tramika. So I told her, Tramika, I said, listen, I'm thinking about possibly playing one more year. We got a good team and this and that. And I said, the Super Bowl's in Detroit. And she says, well, one thing I know is if you're talking to me and you're asking me about it, you already made up your mind. So, which she was right. And so she was like, if you're asking me, I already know you made up your mind. So you're not waiting for me to give you a decision. And so I decided to come back one more year. That year, we ended up getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl in my hometown. And I retired on the podium. I didn't want anybody else to have an opportunity to talk me into one more year. So on the podium with the trophy in my hand, I was like, that's it. I'm retiring, done. So it was a incredible way to end a career.
Well, you'd had a couple of injuries, groin injury and a hip injury for a couple of years there, and were then in a backup role, and then Deuce Staley got hurt, and you had a chance to step back in that season. Again, a few more 100-yard rushing games. You still got it. And then when you were able to clinch the AFC Championship, you looked up into the stands to your mom and dad, and what did you say?
Said, we're going home. and just a little caveat to that, my mom and dad, they went to every single game that I ever played in the NFL. So it was over 200 games. They were at every single game. They traveled every week. And so that was, my sense of power and of energy. And so when we won this game, Another thing is the owner, Mr. Rooney, found out that my parents were coming to every single game. And on the road, it's much different. At home, great seats. On the road, they put you way up there in the top. And so when Mr. Rooney found out that my mom and dad were going to every game and sitting in the top every week, he said, listen, just make sure you know that your mom and dad have 2 of my tickets for every game that they come. And so it was every game. So they got to sit behind the bench and use Mr. Rooney's tickets for probably about 6 years. And he allowed us to do that. So that was incredible. But that's the testament to the type of owners that we had in Pittsburgh. Incredible people.
So 3 years with the Rams, 10 years with the Steelers, 13,600 rushing yards. He retired as a number 6 all-time leading rusher, now number 8. I think a couple of guys, Adrian Peterson and somebody else I think got ahead of you. But
Frank Gore.
Frank Gore, who a lot of people don't realize Frank Gore had that. He has such a long career.
Yeah.
but was elected then to the Hall of Fame in 2015. And in your acceptance speech, you gave a lot of credit to Coach Holtz.
I did, because he was the one that effectively changed the trajectory of my career. When I was here, highly touted out of high school, and sometimes you start believing the press clippings, you're that good, and so I'll never forget my sophomore year, coming off of a really good freshman year. They decided to put me on the cover of the Blue and Gold Illustrated. That's the magazine that did the preseason magazine for the year. And so, they dressed me up, and I got my uniform on. They spritzed me up, and I got the black, paint on. I'm like, ah, right? And so when the magazine comes out, I'm just like, I'm the man. It's like I'm getting these magazines off every counter. I'm sending them all of my friends. I'm like, yes, I have arrived. And so we go to practice, and unbelievable. So when we practice, we got 4 fields. So it's a huge space. So it's one field. Well, with the team, we're defense is on that field, offense is on this field, running backs over here, special teams over here. So so he called a practice, which he never did early. He called up like 30 minutes into practice. So everybody's like, whoo, somebody's in trouble. Woo. And Coach Holtz, if you know him, ever seen him, he's like a little Napoleon. He's like, tough guy, but he's just like a bundle of energy. And so he calls a practice, and you can hear pin drop, right? And everybody's kind of sitting there, and so he makes everybody take a knee, right? Everybody takes a knee. It's like, oh boy, we're in trouble. And he's like, we've got a guy, he's going to cost us a national championship, right? And we're looking around like, what, right? He thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm like, what? Right? And I'm thinking to myself, who is this guy, right? Who is this guy? He ain't going to cost me a national championship, not when I have arrived. And so he's like, but this is your football team, and I expect you to deal with it, right? And so it's like, all right, yeah, we're going to deal with it. And he says, Jerome Bettis, will you stand up? And my chin just dropped, like, and I'm standing up, and like, everybody's looking at me. And I'm like, what is, and he's like, you guys deal with it. It's your team. I expect you guys to handle it. Let's get to practice, right? And so everybody starts leaving. I'm thinking to myself, well, what's that mean? What does that mean for me? And so as I'm like in a daze, a fog, walking, I'm like, what did he just do? So we get to practice, and I'm telling you, they are killing me in practice. They just, it's knocking me down. I run the ball. They weren't supposed to tackle. They tackled me in the ground. I got mud, dirt. I'm like, I can't believe this. So I say to myself, probably halfway through practice, I'm done. I'm pissed off. I'm mad. So I say, I am going to turn it up. If they're going to hit me, I'm going to hit them back, right? So I just went full speed, and I changed the way that I really practiced, because I was attacking everything, because I'm thinking to myself, it's better to be the hammer than the nail, right? So at the end of practice, I'm walking back, and I'm like a leper. Nobody's around me. I walk around, everybody just kind of going around me, right? And I'm like, I can't believe this. So Coach Holtz used to drive this little golf cart. He pulls up, and he says, get in. And I'm like, he says, how was practice? I was like, what? It's the worst ever, right? And he was like, I was just trying to motivate you. He was like, have a great day. And I was like, what? But what it did, it changed my trajectory in the sense that I became a different football player that day. And the way I practiced became different. And I took that way into the NFL, and I was able to affect change in the NFL with the way that I practiced, because it was so much different than what they were used to. Because when I came in, the defensive guys was like, man, slow down. I'm like, nope. one speed, right? And it became infectious. So then after a while, it was a couple running backs doing it. Then it was the wide receivers doing it. And then next thing you know, it was a whole offense. And then the defense said, hey, we got to get on board. So then all of a sudden, we became a better football team because of our practice habits, because we were attacking practice in a much different way. And it just became my battle cry, so to speak, and took me from being a really good, potentially good football player to a really good, borderline great football player because I was willing to put the work in. So that's why I give him so much credit, because him changing the way that I looked at football.
I would question the word borderline. I think a great football player. So Lou Holtz had 3 rules for his football time, right? Do the right thing, be the best you can be, don't compare yourself to anybody, and show people that you care, right? So that's really, show people that you care. And after you left football and retired, I mean, you've opened a restaurant, you've done some entrepreneurial things, but you also started the foundation, the Bus Foundation. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that? The bus stops here.
So I started this foundation, and actually started it, it's about my 4th or 5th year in the NFL. And the reason I started the foundation was when I was back in Detroit growing up, you know, I hadn't played football very long, and I was just learning as a freshman. And there was a gentleman, his name was Reggie Mckenzie. And Reggie was a former NFL football player. Reggie blocked for O.J. Simpson with that the electric company.
Electric company.
And he was the starting right guard, right? He was the right guard, and so he was a mountain of a man, but he was a great person. And what he decided to do about 45 years ago was he decided to start this football camp, and he wanted to help kids in the community and teach them football and that kind of thing. And so as a kid, I'll never forget it, freshman in high school, I go to this camp, and I'm just enthralled, like, wow. He brought NFL players back, and so I'm looking at these guys, I'm like, wow, these are NFL guys, man. And these guys, one of the guys, a guy named Pepper Johnson, played for the New York Giants, went to Ohio State. He went to the same high school that I went to, so I was just like, wow. I mean, I can be an NFL player if I wanted to, right? It just opened up the ideas, but also the love of the game. But he also had a mentorship program, right? Yeah. And so he mentored us. Then he also had a SAT program, right? And I'm like, wow, I'm doing all of this stuff. And so I'm growing up through this program, and I found my love for football first through these camps because they were so competitive. You know, in the summertime, you got all the different schools and all the kids jockeying for position, and it was intense. And so I'll never forget, I get a scholarship to come to Notre Dame, and so I come here, and then after I finish my freshman season, I'm so excited to come back to the camp because now I get to be a coach. And I'm here as a coach, and I'm helping out. But then I realize that he's not making any money doing this. This is for free. I didn't realize that it was for free for the kids, so it's like nobody's making money in this deal. So I found out, I mean, he's paying for all of the coaches' lunches, because we all have lunch, and then he's paying for, we go to this nice dinner after. And I'm like to myself, well, what is he doing this for, right? And I'm like, and I'll never forget, the next day I go up to him, and we're finishing up, and I say, Reg, why are you doing all of this? I mean, it's costing you money, it doesn't make sense. He said, because if I can help just one of these kids, if I can change one of these kids' life, then it's all worth it, right? And I said, Reggie, you changed my life. You made a difference in my life, so I am that one kid. So just know that it's worked. You have done it. And from that day on, I said to myself, if I get a chance, I want to pay it forward. I want to do what he did for me. So hopefully maybe I can help one kid, just one kid, you know, reach his full potential in life. And so I said to myself, if I get to the NFL, I'm going to do it. So that was always a dream of mine. And once I got to the NFL, and I knew I was going to be there for a little bit, and so I said, you know what? I started my foundation, and my goal was to help underprivileged and at-risk kids because I was one of them. I was one of those at-risk kids growing up in the inner city of Detroit. So I said, if I can do it, I will do it. And I've been fortunate enough to, over the 20-plus years, we've been able to help a lot of kids.
So the theme of our Inspiring Conversations is a purposeful journey, or a journey of purpose, and certainly you have proven that. You've given over 1,000 pairs of cleats to inner city kids in Detroit, and you've helped probably more than 20,000 kids with the Bus Stops Here program. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
So in recognition for this, the work that he's done, and he didn't seek it, he was named the Walter Payton Man of the Year in 2001, which is given to the one NFL player who's done the most for community and service and stuff, and you continue that journey today. What's next for the bus? Let me ask you a question. So when you were in St. Louis, they gave you the nickname the Battering Ram.
Right.
And I think it's Myron Pope took credit for giving you the vote, but you, Cope, yeah.
The bus! Look at the bus!
Here comes the bus.
Yoinks and double yoinks. Yoinks and double yoinks.
But you said you thought it came from the Notre Dame magazine, or Observer?
So the nickname, the bus, came from here when I was here. There was a kid in the student body newspaper that wrote an article. And then what happened is the student body would sing it, would chant. Whenever I got the ball and broke it loose, they said, "Nobody stops the bus." That was the chant. And so one of my coaches, he picked up on it, and his name was Jay Hayes. He was a linebacker coach, offensive special teams coach. And so we were pretty tight. And so before every game, he would always joke with me. He'd be like, "Bussy, how much you weigh today?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm about 220. He's like, "Oh, it's gonna be a good day," you know. And I was 250 at the time, and so and I would just say that.
I was gonna say you haven't been 220 since Truman was president.
It's right. So, but I used to joke, and if I felt good, if I felt sluggish, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm about 245 today. It's just gonna be a pounder." And so if I felt loose, I'd be like, "Oh man, I feel good. It's gonna be a long day for somebody." And so we would joke around. And so he ended up leaving and going with Barry Alvarez, who was a former defensive coordinator. He went to Wisconsin.
Yep.
So he ended up coaching in Wisconsin. Well, when I got traded to Pittsburgh, unbeknownst to me, he had a brother that was the tight end for the Steelers. His name was Jonathan Hayes. And so my first year there, we play a preseason game against the Green Bay Packers, and we're staying in Appleton, Wisconsin, and Jay Hayes brings his kids to see their uncle, Jonathan Hayes. Well, he's in the lobby of the hotel. He sees me, and he yells, "Bussy!" And I'm like, who knows that nickname, right? It was like years. And so he was like, "Bussy!" And so we like, "Hey." Well, just so happened, Myron Cope and Bill Hillgrove, they were in the lobby, heard him say "bus," and then Myron Cope, when they got on, Bill Hillgrove says, "Yeah," says his nickname is the bus, and then Myron Cope said, "He kind of looks like a bus, the bus," and that's what he sounded like, right? And then it took off, and that was the end of it. And so from then, everybody called me the bus.
So I think
it's been boom.
When you gave your retirement speech with the Super Bowl trophy, you did the old "I'm going to Disney World," and then what did you say? "I'm taking the bus."
I'm taking the bus.
Well, listen, we got some of our Inspired Leadership Fellows who are here and guests here, and I know that they've all got some questions for you. And I think we got a couple of microphones where we can hand them out. But
sure.
Let's switch over to a Q&A session. Please feel free to ask Jerome anything you want to.
Absolutely.
Anybody first? Right.
Of course.
No, I love this. Yeah, Jerome, it's such a pleasure to have you here. I only have one autograph in my entire life that I've saved, and that's his. Actually, it was given as a gift when you're in a Notre Dame uniform, not a Steeler uniform. And it's framed in our house here in South Bend. Just say very proud that you're a Notre Dame graduate, or soon to be a graduate, I guess, in May. Always was proud of that one as a Pittsburgher. Always proud to say as a Pittsburgher. But one of the questions I have for you, related to being back is one of the joys of this of our group is being with 20-year-olds. I saw you speaking on social media to the team 2 weeks ago, talking about teamwork and relying on your brothers. I think you said maybe you can comment a little bit about the joy in being around 20-somethings again and helping them and relating to them.
The unique opportunity that I have is I have gone, just like all of you, gone and had a career, retired, finished, and now I have a unique opportunity to come back and kind of impart wisdom to these young people about the university, the benefits of this university, and it's hard to recognize that as a 20-something sitting in there. All you're thinking about is getting out, right? I just want to graduate. I don't care less about all this other stuff. Well, I have the unique perspective of knowing how incredibly great it has been going to this university, being a part of this university, so I can explain to them, guys, the best part is still ahead. Understand that. Appreciate, think about this time, right? And really give them some perspective as to the meaning and the true benefit of having gone to this university, right? And so, I'm able to tell my classmates, the guys that ask me, they're asking me all kind of questions and trying to provide some insights, but really able to help the young student athletes here because they're going through what I went through. I can explain to them very clearly what to expect, what I know what they're going through, what they're thinking, and this is how you deal with that. This is how we manage. So to be able to pay it forward in that way and impart that information and let them know what to expect and what you need to do, right, in order to be great. Because what I found is in all of those years, playing, I had never won a championship, right? I'm like, man, we had some great football teams. We're 15-1. We this and that. What I found is in being a champion, it's not lifting the trophy or wearing the ring. Being a champion is about the process. It's about not cheating the process. And so many times, we can take some shortcuts and say, oh, we don't need to do that. I can skip that. No, to be a champion, you can't skip you can't skip the process. And that's what makes you a champion, right? That's what gives you the ability to hold your head up high and say, yeah, we did it. And so I'm explaining to these guys, you can't cheat the process. And I'm fortunate enough to have been on that side and have been on this side and let them know. And I'm saying, hey, I'm back. That's how important this degree is. That I'm back after 30 years of having success, being able to do whatever it is I wanted to do. But I felt it was that important for me to come back and get my degree here. And so that's what you need to understand, what that means. And so having the ability to do that it's been very rewarding for me, and hopefully priceless for these guys, because where are they going to get that kind of information? And then I tell them, hey, I've done everything you want to do. I was a first-round draft pick, the 10th pick of the draft, rookie of the year, Pro Bowls, Hall of Fame, 2 beautiful kids, loving wife, family, companies, whatever it is you want to do, I've done it. So use me as a resource. I'm here. I'm available to all of you guys. Use me as a resource. Mm-hmm. So that's been the most rewarding part for me.
That's awesome.
Hi, thanks so much for being here, Patrick Harvath, part of the ILI group. So you mentioned Mr. Rooney, and you got your paychecks from the Rooney family. You got to know them well. Mm-hmm. They're probably in a sports league of relatively unenlightened leaders. They are among the most enlightened. And of course, one of the things we know the best about them is the Rooney Rule. Mm-hmm. Now we've got the Brian Flores lawsuit. As a black man in the NFL, looking at this, the Shield, and all of the things we hear about the challenges they're facing in terms of the number of players in the league versus the number of black coaches, et cetera, what are your thoughts about how the league has to change, or where do you see hope for some kind of movement in that area?
Yeah, the NFL is a microcosm of society as a whole. I mean, make no mistake. I mean, you have, a certain amount of guys that play the NFL are alcoholics, a certain amount of guys are this or that or that. It's a microcosm of the world that we live in. And to think that that's not the case, to think that that's not happening, I think that would be, misguided at the very least. Absolutely that's happening. Absolutely it needs to change. And so it's up to us to shine a spotlight on it so that we all see it, right? And I think when we see the police abuse, right, and we see it in front of us, we realize it's real, right? Well, guess what? Colin Kaepernick has been saying that, and everybody destroyed him and said, "Oh, absolutely not. No way. That's not happening," right? And then they changed the arguments. Oh, it's about the flag. No, it was never about that. He said that at the beginning of his protest. It's not about the flag. It's about police brutality. But then when we're able to see it, now it's like, oh, okay. Understand. It's real. And I think now we have to see it for what it is in the NFL. Oh, wow, okay. It's here. It's real. And I think that and the stand that he took, that's how you affect change. That's how you affect change in our society as a whole. Because now, not just black people saw that. Everybody saw that. And everybody rallied behind that and said, that's not right. Mm-hmm. That needs to change. And that was from society as a whole. So once we shine a spotlight on it and everybody sees it for what it is, then that gives us the ability to make that change. It's not going to happen overnight. Never will. But if we all see it and we all say, you know what? No, we're not going to stand for that. Then that's how we effectively create change in not only our communities, but also in the NFL.
Thanks for being here. No problem. So we are, as a group, super senior learners. I'm curious as your perspective on how you learned as a student here originally, as a football player, as a professional football player, returning to school, how you see that being different and the challenges and your perspective on what it means for you. And then is it also true that you are still a better bowler than a football player?
I may not be as good a bowler now as a football player, but when I was young, it was definitely the case. I grew up bowling my entire life up until I made a decision at 14 to play football and not bowl anymore. And part of that was because as a young kid, I was very mindful of my surroundings. And I knew if it came down to my college opportunity, if it's kind of like my school clothes opportunity, I was going to be in big trouble because I didn't get many school clothes. I was the youngest of three, and so my sister, she got all the good stuff. My brother got some things, and I got like what was left. So I said to myself, if I want to get a scholarship, I got to go out and figure out how I'm going to get to college, right? And so I said to myself, bowling, let me check. There was only one school at the time that was giving a scholarship for bowling. I'm telling you the truth. There was one school that was giving a scholarship for bowling, and that was Ohio State. And I'm from Michigan, and I'm like, no way I'm going to Ohio State. Right? I'm like, no way I'm going to Ohio State. So I was like, I got to figure something else out. So that's what made me really want to play football. I wanted to give myself the best chance to go to college. Academically, I was sound, top 10% in my class. I knew I could possibly get an academic scholarship, but I didn't want to chance it. I said, I have got to go to college. I've got to find a way. So I said, let me try to play football. I think I'm pretty good. I play in the neighborhood, so maybe I can do that. And that's literally why I played football. So that's kind of that story. But in terms of the learning part, it's very unique now because when I was in school, all I wanted to do was regurgitate. I mean, get it, regurgitate it back on the test, memorize it, and that was it. Now, all of the classes, I'm enjoying what I'm learning because I know I can use it, right? I had a strategic management class. I was like, all of that information I need for my business. I need that. And so I got a business foresight class, right? It's teaching me how to look outside of the scope and look at possible trends that could affect my business long term, right? Yeah, exactly. I need that. So these are all tools for my tool belt that I need going forward, and it's so unique because all these other kids, all they want to do is, they want to learn it, get it out, and then they just throw it away. Well, for me, I'm saying, oh man, this is good stuff. I like this. You know, I had a class, The Spirituality of Work, and it talked about how some companies use work as a vocation, and how, Chick-fil-A, Hobby Lobby, all of these different businesses, how they're able to infuse religion, and not necessarily religion, but a sense of purpose for their employees. And I'm like, man, I love this. It's what I need. And so this is all things that I want to learn about. So this time has been much different. Grades have been much better too. But this time has been much different. I actually got a bunch of A's, so I was like,
Before you ask your question, Mary Ellen, when you were 14, you made the decision to play football, but you also found out that you had asthma. And how did asthma affect you? I know that you're incredibly involved with helping kids with asthma now. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so going out for football, I'm going out, and my coach, he made us run, right? We had to run quarters before practice, right? I'm like, well, what's a quarter? It was a whole time around, and I'm timing you. And we had to wear football shoulder pads on, and I'm like, and we're in August. I'm like, what? But that's what you did. I didn't know. I never played football, right? So I'm like, okay. So I'm running, I'm doing all this, and I fall out. They ambulance, the whole deal. Go to the hospital and find out I'm asthmatic. No idea, right? And so that was it was life-changing because I thought, okay, I tried, that's that. Let's go to something else, right? Let me look at hockey or something, I don't know. Because Michigan's big hockey in the wintertime. Everybody's looking at it. So I'm saying to myself, I got to do something else, right? But my mom and dad, they had a doctor who really explained to them all of the possibilities, and that it wasn't out of the realm of possibility that I could play as long as I managed the asthma. And so my mom and dad came back, hey, you can continue to play. You've got to manage the asthma. You got to do certain things and that. And so I thought, okay, great. And I was able to manage the asthma and play, not have a problem. It came back and backfired on me one time. We were getting ready for a big game, and I'm a junior, I think, right now at this time. I'm a junior, not a senior yet. I'm a junior, have a big role on a team, getting ready for this big game, and the coaches stopped practice, and they said, "There's a car over there. It's spying on us, right? It's been here the last couple days. We just noticed it, right?" So they're like, oh, so now the coaches start going. They're walking over to the car. They're gonna confront, and I'm sinking down lower and lower. I'm like, oh my God, it's my mother. Oh. She would come to every practice because she was so scared because I had asthma. She wanted to be there. So my mom would be at practice every day in the car. She always parked. I always knew who it was, but it was always okay. And they spotted her this time, and they were like, we're going over there. I was like, Coach. Coach, that's my mom. And she's just watching practice. And she said, well, if that's your mom, tell her to come inside the gate. She can come in, she can watch, she can sit right in. I'm like, okay, Coach, thanks. And I was just like so embarrassed that they spotted my mom because she was out there every day. She was worried about her baby having asthma and playing football. So funny story about the asthma.
Mary Ellen,
Thank you. So being back, and I'm sure none of my colleagues have ever thought of this, but I admit that it's crossed my mind, kids these days. Would you want to be back among the students, particularly the student athletes, in the days of name, image, and likeness? And I will also say it pulled at my heartstrings because after the women's game on Saturday, which I watched,
Oh,
you know,
I did too.
heartbroken, on social media, they were criticized. They were threatened today. So, yeah,
Yeah, in this day and age, and it's so funny. I was just talking to a young guy over at the facility before I came. I was meeting with Coach Freeman, and I told one of the guys, I said, I would not want to be you guys. I said, because the way social media has changed the way that you guys have to operate and do things now, it is so difficult and dangerous. I said, it's an environment that's just, it's not a budding environment. You know, everybody's, now, you know, if I did something, I fumbled, then, you know, guess what? You couldn't say anything because you was looking at the TV. I was on the other side of the TV, no problem. Well, now you can reach me, you can comment, you can touch me in the sense that that negative comment that you want to make, right? You can make it to me now, and I just think that is such a difficult situation for the athlete because they're human too, right? They nobody hurts more than those young ladies in that locker room, right? They understand the opportunity that they let slip away from them. They understand that, right? Nobody understands it more than them, but yet they going to be, you know, criticized and all they can hear and see and all these, they get memes and all this kind of, and it's like, really? I mean, these are young student athletes. They're not, you know, they're not going. This is not a job. This is what they love to do, right? They're going to school, and but they're going to get vilified for it, and so that's just not right, you know. And I'm just, unfortunately, I'm glad I'm not in that environment because I was in a different world where I would say something stupid, I'm sure. And it'd be very bad. So I'm just glad that I don't have to deal with it. But it is a very difficult situation. It's so unfair. It really is.
It really is. Got time for one more question in the session. We are going to have a chance to be able to meet with Jerome informally after the session. Tom?
Thanks for coming.
No problem.
I was wondering if you might talk a little bit about how you've been able to, if you have been able to maintain involvement in the Detroit area, in your neighborhood, through various activities, or are you mostly focusing on Pittsburgh, or how's?
Great question. I have, my foundation has a program that is in Detroit, in the city. So I'm back there, you know, quite a bit frequently, and also from a business context, I'm doing a development in the city of Detroit. So I'm in Detroit, you know, fairly, and my mom is there, so she makes sure that I get in town, you know, quite a bit. So I, you know, can't let mom get mad at me. So I'm in Detroit a lot more than probably people think that I am. I live in Atlanta now, but I'm in Detroit maybe once a month probably.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Jerome, how about we give you the last word?
Well, I just want to say it's incredible to see that you guys are involved in this program. And he was telling me about the program, and I was just so in awe of all of you because I understand the commitment that it takes to be here. And trust me, it is not a small commitment. I hear it from my wife every day. But no, for you guys to make the commitment to be here for a full year, that is really impressive, and it shows your commitment that you want to do more, and there's more possibilities for you guys. So I'm just in awe of you guys and so impressed that you guys are all here with your commitment, and because I know how difficult it is for me to read those books at 9 o'clock at night. I'm dozing. I'm like, I got 2 more hours to go. It's like, and so for real, I'm thoroughly impressed, and I commend you.
Thanks, Jerome. Well, that wraps up our session for tonight, but I want to really thank Jerome so much for taking the time to come back to Notre Dame and get your degree, but also spend some time with the Inspired Leadership Initiative. And if you want to learn more about the Inspired Leadership Initiative, please go to ili.nd.edu. And there's all kinds of information there. There's actually the opportunity to be able to apply for admission if you want to. And it's a great program, and I want to thank our fellows and guests for being here as well. And I want to certainly thank the Think.ND team and the Alumni Association and our staff for hosting this. So thanks again, everybody. And again, Jerome Bettis, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.